Well, let me first answer what was just addressed.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that now. I understand what your position is now. But when I was in that lifestyle and I wanted what I was doing to be right, I put my own meaning behind it, you know. So I understand what you were doing as a mom now, that you were not being judgmental, but that made it easier for me to kind of go through what I was going through, to put that in my mind, to say, okay, well, she, you know, she's supposed to be of God. Why is she judging me?
Exactly.
You know.
And you've said it to me. You're like, Ma, God wouldn't do that. And there was some times when you were going through your walk, I just like walk away from you and go pray, because I'm like, God, you promised me that my children would not, you know, have to go through all of this, and my children, you know. But then I started saying, God, these are your children. I'm only a steward. So tell me what I need to do in this situation. And I remember that all my family members and everybody around me was like, oh, she's born that way. Get used to it.
I'm glad you didn't, though.
Oh, now you say that. You weren't saying that back then. But all of them were like, oh, she's born that way. And, you know, even your one of your brothers would even say to me, Ma, you know, I know that's your little girl, but you need to get over it, because your little girl is, you know, she wants to be gay, and that's just something strong out there. Everybody's gay now in New York. All the girls are gay, so get used to it and just, you know, realize that your baby girl is gone. And I'm like, I don't receive that. I don't want to hear it. I wouldn't argue with them. I'd say, I'm sorry, that's not my testimony. That is not what God told me, so I don't receive it. And they were like, Ma, you know, you got to figure out a way to love her the way she is. And I'm like, nope, that is not my daughter. That's a flesh spirit, and God's going to remove it. I'm not dealing with that, and I'm not receiving it. But now you're glad I prayed.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely glad now, because, you know, I see what is in the future for me. Back then I didn't see it, so it's kind of more so, you know, me playing the victim and having the victim spirit. Yeah, I did. And I remember at one point we didn't talk for like 2 years. And I think I was like in my second relationship, like the
you were
second
like
one.
Determined.
And at this point, yeah, I was very happily lesbian. Like, you know, I went from, in New York, it wasn't really accepted, you know, especially around the age of 16. I was hiding it. I didn't want people to know, especially after I realized that my mother wasn't having it. So I really didn't want anybody to know. But then I went to college with one girl, and then we ended up moving to Georgia together. And at that point in Georgia, it's more accepted out here. You know, people are more openly gay. So at that point, it was kind of like, okay, well, everybody's okay with it, you know.
Even my siblings were here saying, oh, yeah, you know, come on, Shannon, you gay, we accept it, come on, girl.
They weren't pushing me to do it, but they kind of felt like, okay, we don't want to make her feel like we don't love her.
Exactly.
So maybe the way they went about it was wrong, but their message, I understood that. And then at that point,
some people were fighting me, Shannon. Like, they were like, you're wrong. You know, that's not godly to not be, because I was like, I don't receive it. I'm not accepting it. I don't receive it. I love you, but I'm not accepting that sin. I'm not going to say, because you know why? God showed me you getting married to a man. He showed me a picture of you and a man.
And I used to hate when you used to tell me
that.
I used to hate it with a passion, because I'm like, no, Mom, I'm gay. I'm just gay. That's it. Like, if you're going to love me, then you have to accept me and whoever I'm with. And it got to a point to where, you know, my mom gave me an ultimatum, and we're a very close-knit family. I mean, with my father being where he was, and with it always being me, my two brothers, my sister.
Locked up for 15 years.
Well, that's your testimony. You say it. But my father was in prison for all of my life. So I really grew up with my mom being my mom and my dad, and then my oldest brother being my father. So we were very, very, very close-knit. Everything, every trial and tribulation, every positive thing that we all went through together. So she gave me, it got to a point to where at this point I'm in my 20s, you know, I'm like, okay, well, I'm grown. Right, I was very rebellious, and I was proud to be rebellious at that point. I was like, you know,
giving me all of this.
Yes, and at that point I felt like, okay, I'm in college now, I'm done with college, I live on my own, I'm paying my own bills, so I'm going to do what I want to do. And then it didn't help that my family wasn't telling me, okay, well, this is not right, even though I knew. I grew up in Catholic school, so a part of me has always known that it's not right, but I started tricking myself into believing God is going to know your heart. You know, I'm not killing anybody. You know, I could be doing worse, but anyway, my mother gave me an ultimatum, and at that point she said, okay, well, either you're going to choose this lifestyle or you're going to choose me. And at that point I kind of switched it in my mind to kind of work for me, and I chose the lifestyle. And I said, I put it all on her. I said, okay, well, you know, this is what she chose. I didn't choose. And I remember saying that to you.
Did say that to
I
me.
said, you know, Ma, well, if this is what you want to do, then remember you chose this. And that's all the confusion. I'm not sitting there thinking like, no, this is what you're choosing. I'm putting it on my mom so that I didn't have to deal. So that I didn't have to deal with it at that point. So it kind of made it easier, kind of like a defense mechanism, so that it didn't hurt that bad to not have people who I was so close to, especially my mother. I mean, I still spoke to my brothers, but I didn't. My mother just completely cut me. We didn't speak for 2 years, not hi, hello, nothing. We didn't call each other for 2 years. And that was actually when I got the deepest in the sin, because I didn't have anybody to kind of guide me or kind of continue to tell me what you're doing is wrong. So at that point I was indulging in smoking weed. I was out at clubs every weekend. I was performing at different clubs. I mean, in the gay
lifestyle.
In the gay lifestyle or lesbian lifestyle, homosexual lifestyle. It's a big thing to do. They call it families, and you do like kind of like the drag